This video is brought to you by these YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Hello everyone and welcome to the top 10 Mind Autoers on Bleach Brave Souls. Now out of all the attributes, Mind is a little special. Usually with autoing characters, the great majority of them are characters with a really high attack, flurry, and poise. Mind is kind of the exception to the rule, mostly because there's not really that many new high attack characters. For the most part, it's just been high SP. You'll see what I mean. Bankai!
天差残月
Now starting off the list, we have the Fierce Battle version of Ichigo. This version of Ichigo has a really high SP as well as a plus 40 Bruiser, a plus 40 Berserker, Frenzy, a strong attack recharge link, and the ability to naturally hit hidden enemies, completely ignoring the need for a Zeta pill. This is useful because you can use that accessory slot for something else, and it can also save time on a run. All of his attacks do a lot of damage with his lunge move Strong Attack 1, a beam shot Strong Attack 2, and a near full screen Strong Attack 3. Now he doesn't have Havoc, so none of these attacks have amazing range, but they're still pretty good. And thanks to the plus 40 Berserker, he does heavy damage with them. Even if he's forced to use a normal attack, he does have a plus 40 Bruiser, so that one will also deal a pretty decent amount of damage. Now as high SP characters go, they typically don't have that much durability, so you kinda have to rely on spamming attacks and speed, something that's a little bit difficult to control when autoing, since you can't really control when you use your strong attacks. That said, this Ichigo is a bit more durable than the rest. He has a Soul Reaper killer, and he has a damage reduction ability of 20% when going up against Soul Reapers, making him a really good candidate for autoing Soul Reaper events. Plus, he's completely immune to being paralyzed. Just keep in mind if you use this guy to auto, to really have some good accessories on him. After all, the most important part of any autoing character is how you build them, and for SP characters in particular, that's even more true, since they have to be able to both take a hit and deal a lot of damage.
見えています。神の力を思い知りなさい。
So I go through many drafts of top 10 lists whenever I make them, and I switch the order around on the characters a lot. Kiriko here is a very good example of that, since there's kind of a lot to this character. He has a really high SP as well as a plus 40 Bruiser, a plus 40 Berserker, a strong attack recharge link, and some pretty solid attacks, with a beam shot Strong Attack 1 and a Strong Attack 3 that's very near full screen. Strong Attack 2 though is where it really gets complicated. It's a lunge move boost move with Enhancer, and it's also a barrier move. And he has the ability multi-barrier at 2, meaning that anytime he uses his attack he gets 5 barriers. That's where this kinda gets tricky. This is an amazing ability to have for any character, but it's more useful for a character with a high attack to have, since they don't really rely on strong attacks to deal damage. Lucky for Kiriko though, he does have a plus 40 Bruiser, and that Strong Attack 2, like I said, is a boost move, so his normal attack is actually a viable option. He may not have guard break, but he has an Arankar killer, and those guys can't guard against melee attacks anyway. Speaking of which, he also has an ability that increases the killer effectiveness by 30%, effectively making him one of the best characters to auto with if you're going up against Arankars. Topping things off, he's also completely immune to being frozen. Overall, he's just a very good autoer against Arankars and pretty good just about everywhere else.
汚れた分だけ強くなる。悠長にしてると痛い目見るよ。
みんな
Next up, we have Jackie. I wasn't kidding when I said we're gonna get a lot of characters that are high SP characters. Seriously, we need more high attack mind characters. Anyway, Jackie has a really high SP as well as Frenzy, Berserker at 20%, a strong attack damage link of 20%, Bruiser at 20%, and a strong attack recharge ability. She's also got guard break and poise, meaning that not only can her attacks not be interrupted, but they will always do the max amount of damage to the enemies, since they cannot be guarded against. This is a pretty deadly combination and it makes her a really fast character to auto with. She's got some pretty useful strong attacks, even though none of them have Havoc, with a lunge move Strong Attack 1, a Strong Attack 2 that hits a large area in front of her, and a Strong Attack 3 that's a hybrid vortex move. It gathers enemies in one spot and then hits them one final time. This not only deals a good amount of damage, but it also hits a little bit more than the average number of times for a Strong Attack 3, which is convenient because all of her attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating slow. In addition to that, she's also got the innate skill Shackler, which randomly inflicts slow to enemies. She's also got the innate ability to resist being frozen, meaning that the only way to actually stop her is to paralyze her or to take her out. Honestly, she's a really fast character who ironically can inflict slow. I do wish she had better range on her strong attacks, but it's not really enough to take her off this list.
俺がアブエロに教わったのは守るための力の使い方だ、ムエルテ。
Alright, next up we have Chad, and this guy is kind of ridiculous. because with high enough stats, he's probably the best character on this list, to be honest with you. Or rather, the fastest character on this list is probably more accurate, since other characters are far more reliable and definitely more durable. Chad has a really high SP as well as Berserker at 40% and Frenzy. He's also got Bruiser at 40%, meaning his normal attacks deal a decent amount of damage, and he's got a strong attack recharge link, letting him spam his attacks. While he doesn't have Havoc, his attacks do have some decent range, with a lunge move strong attack 1, a strong attack 2 that hits a large area in front of him, and a full screen strong attack 3. As far as strong attacks go, he's got some pretty generic ones. What really sets him apart are 3 of his abilities: Guard Break, hit hidden enemies, and Poise. The combination of which make it toward heat always deals a large amount of damage since it cannot be blocked, it always hits the enemies since they cannot hide from him, and his attacks cannot be staggered or interrupted, thanks to the Poise ability, meaning that unless you freeze him or paralyze him, he is going to be a juggernaut of an auto-er. Now Poise means he can't be staggered, but he can still take damage, and he doesn't really come equipped with anything to nullify it. Plus he's susceptible to every kind of status element, so it's not like he's invincible. Still, with decent enough stats, he can be one of the fastest auto-ers in the game. Next up, we have the tag team version of Yoruichi and Soifon. Now this character is very different from everyone else on this list, in the fact that it's actually 2 characters in one. They have a really high SP as well as Bruiser at 20%, Berserker at 20%, Guard Break, Frenzy, a strong attack recharge ability, and a full stamina damage link, which, to be honest, doesn't really come in handy with autoing, not unless you can continuously heal yourself like Aizen can. Still, this character can dish out a lot of damage, and she's got really good range on her strong attacks, with a Beam Shot strong attack 1, a hybrid vortex move strong attack 2, and a full screen strong attack 3. As I mentioned, she has Guard Break, so all of these attacks will be doing the max amount of damage, and they can all inflict debilitating poison, while her normal attacks can inflict debilitating laceration. Now she doesn't have the highest attack stat, but her normal attack is still very valuable, since it's a very fast attack, and you technically have 2 of them since Soifon's constantly doing it as well. Her attacks may not deal as much damage as Yoruichi's, but it's still enough to take out a lot of enemies. Not to mention it keeps enemies occupied and can prevent them from either getting to you or attacking you. Also, while Yoruichi is immune to both being frozen and burned, she can still be paralyzed, and it's very, very useful to have somebody else dealing damage and attacking while you're unable to move. Finally, because this is 2 characters, they also have 2 killers, a Hollow Killer and a No Affiliation Killer, effectively doubling the areas they're especially useful in. And because it's a double team character and each have different affiliations normally, this character is a No Affiliation, which also comes in handy when autoing since there's not a lot of events with No Affiliation killers. Something that's also true for the humans on this list. I know I've covered 3 of them, so better to put it now than ever.
よう、覚悟はいいか。行くぜ、決意転生。
Now if this was a top 10 list, this Ichigo would be a lot higher, but it's an auto list. Still, it's impressive he made it this high up. This Ichigo has a really high SP, as well as Berserker at a ridiculous 60%, Bruiser at 40%, Frenzy, Havoc at 20%, Marauder, and a strong attack recharge link, allowing him to spam 2 out of his 3 strong attacks. His strong attack 1, which is a beam shot, and his strong attack 3, which is beyond full screen thanks to the Havoc at 20. Now characters with the beam shot for a strong attack 1 are really useful for autoing, since they can hit a high number of enemies with their most common attack. This was also true for Yoruichi, but it's even better with Ichigo since he's got Havoc at 20. The Havoc also helps push his strong attack 2 to very near full screen, though he can't use it as often because it's a boost move with Enhancer, and it increases his attack, defense, and focus by 33%, effectively making his normal attack a viable option since he already has Bruiser at 40%. And for this guy, a hybrid build is kind of what you want, since he'll be using his normal attack a lot. Luckily, thanks to the Marauder, he both has Guard Break and Nullify melee resistance, and because of the boost move, his attack will essentially be over 850 for most of the run. As I mentioned, the boost move also increases the defense, letting him take more damage, but he also has a damage reduction ability of 16%, and he's completely immune to being both paralyzed and weakened. He's not the most durable character on this list, but considering most of the characters on this list have been high SP characters, he's up there. I guess what I'm trying to say is, K-Lab, we need more high attack mind characters.
僕なんかが生き残ったところで守りきれるのかどうかみんな
Speaking of which, we get to the first of the high attack characters on this list, which is crazy considering he's number 4. I'm talking about the 1000-Year Blood War version of Ezreal. Now this Ezreal is very impressive. He's got a really high attack as well as Bruiser at 30%, Flurry, and Poise, meaning he's doing a lot of damage. And he's a ranged character, so he's doing all of this from a distance. All of his attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating weakening, and his strong attack 2 is very likely to do so because it's a hybrid vortex move. Any enemy that's weakened deals 1 damage per attack. They also get a drop in defense, allowing him to deal more damage. Ezreal also has a damage reduction soul trait of 20% that's stackable up to 80%, making him incredibly difficult to take out. And if you do manage to take him out, he also has a last stage survival ability, reviving him back with 20% of his total health. As far as autoers go, he's one of the more reliable ones on this list, but also one of the slowest because he doesn't have guard break and he's a ranged attacker. Still, you take the bad with the good, and he's definitely more good.
行くよ後ろの正面だれバカな
Next up, we have the Spirits Are Forever With You version of Shunsui, who is yet another high SP character, with Frenzy, Berserker at 40%, Havoc at 20%, Guard Break, and a strong attack recharge link of 14%. And he definitely puts that to good use. All of his attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating weakening, and none is more likely than a strong attack 2 that's a Seeking Vortex move. It hits a ridiculous 50 times, and recharges at the same rate of a regular strong attack 2. Considering it lasts for 5 seconds, and depending on how you build him, you can get it back after 7, it could potentially be on the field longer than not. Though that's completely up to the AI, since again, this is an auto list. Still, this Seeking Vortex move is very useful for both inflicting weakening and keeping enemies occupied, but it's not his only useful strong attack. After all, he has one of the best strong attack ones in the game, a beam shot that's much wider than your average beam shot, and because it's a strong attack 1, he will definitely be spamming this. Then we have a strong attack 3. Normally this is a charge move that when fully charged is beyond full screen, but this is an auto list, so no charging here. Still, even without it being charged, having Havoc at 20 means it still has pretty decent range for a strong attack 3. Also, and I can't believe I forgot to say this, he also has Innervator, which is an ability that randomly inflicts weakening to enemies every 5 seconds, greatly increasing both his damage and durability, since a lot of the enemies can be weakened right out of the gate. In addition to being able to inflict weakening just by existing, he's also completely immune to it, which just makes sense. Now, while he is incredibly likely to inflict weakening, he's also a squishy character, meaning he can't really resist damage. That said, even with autoing, he doesn't really have to try too hard to make it toward enemies can't even get near him.
逃がしやしないさ。好きに暴れてくれていいよ。この命の檻から出られやしない。
Okay, so next up we have Kiryu. And let me just say this out of the gate, Kiryu can be number 1. And in fact, when I first put this list together, she was at number 1, because she is the most durable character in this list, and one of the most durable characters in the entire game. The only reason she's not is simply because of guard break, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. Now, Kiryu has a really high attack. She also has Bruiser at 40%, Flurry, and Poise, and she's a ranged character, so she's dealing all this damage from a distance. She's also got a damage reduction soul trait of 16% that's stackable up to 76%, meaning she's not taking that much damage herself. Plus, her strong attack 2 is a boost move with Enhancer, so not only is she dealing more damage than before, but she can also resist more damage than before since her defense is increased as well. And on the off chance that she does take enough damage, that strong attack 2 is also a heal move, and she's got healer at 30%, so she's healing even more health than a regular healer. So you can see why I say she's one of the most durable characters in the game. You can build her so she only takes 24% of the damage she should take, she can heal it anytime she does take damage, but it's unlikely since she's a ranged character and she can probably take out enemies before they get to her. The only downside to this character is that she's kind of slow, because she doesn't have guard break. Characters that rely more on strong attacks than normal attacks don't have to worry about this as much since they're constantly spamming strong attacks, but characters that rely on normal attacks do kind of have to worry about this, especially when autoing, since they can't actually deal damage, or rather as much damage, until a strong attack is used. And when a character is ranged like her, it gets even worse, because sometimes the AI won't use a strong attack until the enemy's up close. Still, it's not like it's a deal breaker. It does slow her down, but not by a ridiculous margin. Her insane damage and durability are still more than enough to put her at number 2 on this list.
過ちを繰り返すつもりはない。皆そこに沈め、永久に。
五円竜が本だ！バカな。
切れないものがないなら形のないもので君を殺す。宇宙空間に包まれて死ね。
あなたの気持ち受け取りました。アブソリュートドラゴンシャット。悪い人見つけた。
観音寺流最終奥義キャノンバール。
信じられないなら一つお見せしましょう。泣け、紅姫。
Now finally at number 1, much like last year's list, we have Kisuke Urahara, the Fierce Battle version. Now Kisuke may not be as durable as Kiryu, but with a high enough attack stat that no longer matters. Which shouldn't be too hard. He has a ridiculous attack already, along with a plus 40 bruiser, a plus 20 normal attack damage link, flurry, and guard break. Combine that with the fact that he's a ranged character, and all you need is a really high attack stat, a Zeta pill, and no enemy can get near you, since he can effectively take them all out before they even get to him. Now there is a chance that enemies will spawn behind him, but there's also a good chance that he'll be protected, since his strong attack 2 is a barrier move, giving him enough time to turn around and take out the enemies. Honestly, there's not much more I can say about him. He's kind of simply good. Everyone else has all these crazy things going for him, when all you really need is a ranged character with a high attack, flurry, and guard break. Barriers help too, I guess. And the fact that he's got a plus 50 berserker for his strong attack can also come in handy. Now he's by no means the fastest character on this list, since a lot of the high SP characters can probably take out rooms faster than he can, but he's still a fast choice and definitely safer than any of the high SP characters. The only thing that actually bothers me about him being at number 1 is the fact that both Kiryu and him have the same spots that they did last year, and Ezreal only moved up 1 spot. So what I'm trying to say, again, is that we need more high attack mine characters. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for some more top 10 lists.